Hi there. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's Chapter 8 might be the most music stuffed per square inch I have ever seen in a video game, and we're going to discover all of it. It's time to place a mic on Shinra's most effective propaganda machine. That's right, we're finally at the Gold Saucer. I'm Patrick Rainville, and this is the music of the Lifestream. Chapter 8 opens where else but with Rebirth's first arrangement of the Gold Saucer theme. This is a very true to the original reproduction of the 1997 track, presented in the same key and tempo, with Nobuo Uematsu's synth sounds replaced with equivalent, much more realistic virtual instruments. While Shotaro Shima is usually the one in charge of these faithful HD arrangements, this one was arranged by Ryo Furukawa. If you recall his Chapter 4 Upper Junon tracks, this one too has a sort of marching band arrangement style, with the brass front and center, while the flutes and strings are relegated more to softer accents and counter melodies. Ironically, by improving the sound quality so much over the FF7 version, I think it misses the very cloying, synthetic noisiness of the original, which to me always felt like a wonderful bit of musical world building. The Gold Saucer is this neon bright, artificial wonderland hiding a dark secret, so a very repetitive, superficially sweet theme was the perfect fit. Furukawa's Pro Mix sells the amusement park vibe, sure, but the piece is altogether too digestible and won't drive you mad, which is admittedly an odd thing to criticize it for. But case in point, see the second half of the piece. The original game has a 50-second long loop with a very repetitive main melody that repeats and repeats ad nauseum, emphasis on nausea. For Rebirth, the sound team rightfully saw that this is a very grating thing to listen to, so after the first 50 seconds, instead of looping like the original does, Ryo Furukawa expertly composes an all-new second half that fits right in. So now the Gold Saucer theme is twice as long while being half as repetitive. It's a net positive to the music, but again, I do think its bigger, more abundant approach defangs the original. And if that ain't foreshadowing for the end of Chapter 8, what is? Having said all that, once gameplay resumes, we'll quickly notice that the Gold Saucer theme is actually a diegetic piece of music, meaning the characters themselves can hear it in-world. It's muffled as you begin your approach, and then later during cutscenes you can hear the audio pan left and right in time with camera cuts. So in that context, yeah, I guess Shinra wouldn't skimp out on embellishing the main theme for their homoerotic Disneyland. And speaking of, upon arriving in the welcome area, the party receives the welcoming of a lifetime. Following his unbeatable Chapter 7 track Let's Go Mount Corel, National Treasure Mitsuto Suzuki is back with another monumental Rebirth original. Co-composed and, I think, co-sung by frequent collaborator Nozomi Toki, Bare Your Soul and its accompanying cutscene are Rebirth's very obvious equivalent to Remake's massive, dramatic musical number, Stand Up. Although I think Suzuki and the entire Rebirth team have really outdone themselves with this one. Things start simple enough with a glitzy and bubbly first verse, hiding a much more complex core. Yeah, it's catchy, saccharine, and deceptive, which is perfectly emblematic of the Gold Saucer itself. Anyway, just like Yuffie's magical outfit change, the poppy intro morphs into a swinging jazzy number. lyrics, composed by Rebirth co-director Motomu Toriyama, describe someone longing for a king to grovel before them. The next verse introduces the concept of man, with heavy electric guitars and a new massive masculine choir. We pivot right back to our queen in waiting, clearly unimpressed by the concept of man. But behind door number 3, Suzuki introduces us to the concept of Dio, along with the track's fourth musical genre hop in just as many verses.
Pack it up, boy, step up the battleground. The golden god is here, your king is now crowned. No rocks or rings can compare to the king's blinding badass pure drown in the light of the champion's might. Bury his soul in the night.
This is it. When in doubt, always bet on Dio. From here, the track settles into a high-energy Broadway blend of the preceding verses, with the masculine and feminine voices finally coming together for the chorus. As Dio introduces himself to Cloud, the track lulls you into a false sense of security before... God, I love that moment. It sounds huge, just like the massive man standing in front of our scrawny hero. Cait Sith returns and we get one last big outro. It's a massive ending. Except it isn't. We're still not done. As Cloud gets polygonally hologrammed, the track 2 begins its demakification, with all the rich live instruments getting bit crunched into their new lo-fi selves. As you are thrust into the, let's be real, not very good at all, 3D brawler minigame, we get a fun new chiptune track. We've heard this retro side of Suzuki before with the frog hopping minigame in Chapter 4, although I'd much prefer listen to this one here over and over again. Naturally, for the chorus we get a fun demake version of the Bare Your Soul theme. Nice. What's that? 5th generation PS1 style 3D polygonal art and 4th generation 16-bit music is an anachronistic mishmash? Who said that? Oh, come on, man. Just let Suzuki have his fun. This is the guy who just introduced us to the concept of Dio, for crying out loud. Let him do what he wants. He's earned it. Anyway, following all of that, the party decides to split up. Cloud is still having Sephiroth hallucinations, so Barrett offers to take him to the Gold Saucer's spooky hotel so he can rest up. The moment we arrive outside the hotel, our next piece begins. This is a light-hearted, Luigi's Mansion-esque take on spooky music by Yoshitaka Suzuki. Since this track made it onto the original soundtrack, we can see that Nobuo Uematsu is the sole listed composer. Suzuki doesn't get a credit? Really? Yeah, there's the FF7 main theme on the accordion. But is that it? No, there's also a reference to Trail of Blood in the Glockenspiel arpeggio. That shouldn't be too surprising since FF7 used Trail of Blood to score the original haunted hotel scenes. Two other themes I can hear in there are the life stream, followed by Shinra right after. Whether or not those are deliberate references, there's solid world building to justify it. We learn in Chapter 9 about how Shinra's gold saucer is powered by Mako reactors which extract lifestream from the planet. This in turn has led to the death and desertification of the once green surrounding Corel region. Even Barrett alludes to it in this very scene. To have this dirty history referenced in the music, via Shinra and Lifestream, of the one place in Gold Saucer where death and graveyards and ghosts are cool, actually, is a fun but morbid bit of musical storytelling. Or maybe I'm reading too much into it. What I'm more certain about, however, is that the track Haunted Hotel on the original soundtrack is actually two tracks blended into one. After Cloud crosses the bridge to the hotel and the cutscene begins, the music begins to crossfade into something new. Just like that very smooth Chapter 3 audio transition we heard while entering Mithril Mine, crossfading into a locked cutscene audio track is a lot harder than the reverse, cutscene to gameplay. So it's always impressive to see it in action. After Barrett knocks over a tombstone, Cait Sith and his big Mog reveal themselves, and on cue, his theme plays. It's a bit less Twin Peaks and a bit more big band than the original, but it's still fun. Assuming this is Yoshitaka Suzuki as well, which I do, these couple tracks have been a nice opportunity to hear the arranger work outside of the usually very serious cinematic genre he tends to be pigeonholed with. That solo trumpet lead in particular is not something he usually gets to play with, and the sound suits him well. As we open the door to the hotel itself, the next piece begins. Appropriately, the trail of bloodness of the piece is much more obvious now, although the tension doesn't last long. As Barrett remarks on the tackiness of the interior, the pizzicato strings lighten the mood. Without missing a beat, the next audio cue starts. The tempo's calmed down a bit from before, but this is otherwise a continuation of the Suzuki piece that began outside. The slow inhale-exhale accordion eventually reveals that this is an arrangement of Trail of Blood. It's not a long loop, but nor does it need to be, because once we interact with the reception desk, it triggers a cutscene along with our next track. Following the jump scare and its dramatic aftermath, the Trail of Blood accordion returns, faster than before, but it's followed up with a longer response melody that blossoms into its own new little melody. Could this be a new burgeoning character theme? Maybe. We'll have to see if this is a recurring character beyond this chapter. As Cait Sith shows up, we use his transform materia to transform the music into a second arrangement of his theme. After Cait Sith finds us a room and the cutscene ends, we return to the previous haunted hotel arrangement. Psych! No, that would be too easy. Instead, we've got another new arrangement of the theme. It's mostly a softer arrangement of the one we heard outside. Those Lifestream and Shinra nods that I might have hallucinated also show up here. Later on, though, it goes to a different passage of Trail of Blood we haven't heard yet. In the original, it's a long, mysterious, and gloomy melody, but here, the bouncy piano rhythm keeps it playful. This track is pretty generous in length, taking 2.5 minutes before it loops. There's a surprising amount of variety in the back half, including a circus-like finale, perhaps to accompany the Cait Sith fortune-telling cutscene upstairs. By the time you reach the elevator, there's a knocking at the door as the next track begins. Following the Celesta playing the Shinra and Turks themes, we get another jump scare, yeah, sorry. Blame the concierge. Afterward, we have a woodwind instrument representing the Turks and a horn representing Shinra. No more surprises beyond that, but it sounds nice all the same. Following the cutscene, the music returns to the lobby variant we heard upon first entering the hotel. Once Cloud's had his fun exploring the Tonberry suite, it's time for a power snooze. Our perspective shifts over to Zack inside Aerith and Elmira's house. Just like the Zack sequence from Chapter 7, the scene plays both a portentous sky and end of the world, with no break between the two. When Cloud wakes up, there's a knock at the door. As for who's knocking, that depends on which side quests you've done, how you answered your party members' questions, and what synergy ability and skills you've used. As for who knocked on my door, do you have to ask? Yeah, this is damn smooth. Actually, it was a bit of a swerve when I first heard this because that opening chord on an electric piano is so similar to the opening of the Star of Seventh Heaven. One of my favorite tracks from Final Fantasy VII Remake. But then it quickly reveals itself to be not quite as good as that one, but still very nice. The chords are less jazzy, but the drum beat, chimes, and soft pad all sell the romantic atmosphere. Very awesome. Although you might want to take your time getting to the elevator, because once you reach it, the track fades out. That's pretty wild, writing a completely unique arrangement for such a short scene. Even wilder, they did this 4 times. If your playthrough looked a little different from mine, you might instead get... Of course you get a unique theme arrangement per each date candidate. This is Rebirth, after all. Anyway, this is an equally chill and romantic arrangement of Aerith's theme. I find it more interesting than the Tifa one because Aerith's original theme is intrinsically so much sadder. Hard not to get weepy with that 1 to minor 5 chord progression. But that would be too much of a buzzkill for this uplifting date scene, so instead, the arranger, Shoya Tsunekawa, refuses to move to the minor 5. He stays at the root chord a bit longer, and then finds a different resolution. We can worry about that minor 5 once we get to chapter 14, but for now, this is about having fun. And thanks to the strong melody staying the same, there's no ambiguity about whether or not we're still listening to Aerith's theme. It's just a happier version of it. Nicely done. If a romantic outing isn't in the cards, Cloud can also function as the party's resident babysitter. We've got another breezy arrangement of Yuffie's theme, although the acoustic guitar and more subdued percussion gives this scene a more relaxed, less loaded energy than the Tifa and Aerith ones. We heard a lot of Yuffie arrangements in the last chapter, so this one is a bit less exciting to me than the other two. If you were closest to Red 13 or Barrett, or were simply rude to everyone, when Cloud opens the door, there's no one. If that's the case, we get a similarly relaxed arrangement of On Our Way. This is one of those themes that's pretty malleable, but also doesn't really belong to any one place or person, which is probably why they chose it for this scene. I guess an upbeat arrangement of Hollow or Advent Children's Cloud Smiles might have worked as well, but I'm fine with this pick. Cool. Alright, that's it for your potential dates. Afterward, when you... Oh, did I forget someone? Oh, that's me. Hey, did you know Square Enix has been copyright claiming my Rebirth videos? Yeah, and lately it's gotten worse. It used to be I could contest the claim, saying my videos fall under fair use for being educational analysis videos, but lately they've been rejecting my appeals. I've tried to dispute the rejection, but they rejected that one too, and have told me they'll delete my video if I continue to do so. That, and it can lead to a strike on YouTube, 3 of which, and your whole channel is banned. So, I'm not going to dispute those anymore. Which means that going forward, if a claimed video gets 50 views or 50,000 views, hey, a boy can dream, I won't make any money off it. Those are the risks of making music analysis videos on YouTube, but the only reason I'm not throwing in the towel on making them is thanks to the essential support of folks on Patreon. Yeah. Sorry, this is a Patreon pitch. I know, in the middle of the video even. How rude. But it really is important for that to grow if I want to keep making these Rebirth videos. On the Patreon, there are tons of perks such as bi-weekly updates, personal chats, spreadsheet access, and having your name in the credits. I've also just added a new tier to have your name show up in the opening credits as well. So if these videos resonate with you, and if it's within your means, I'd be honored if you could take a look at the Patreon. I'd love to have your help getting us to the end of Rebirth. Okay, done. Following a brief, musicless cutscene of Barrett spotting a cloaked figure, we arrive at the ground floor of the haunted hotel, and yes, we have another new arrangement for the occasion. This one is also quite similar to the lobby one, although it's got a softer glockenspiel and pizzicato strings in the front of the mix. The underlying chords and melody are still very much Trail of Blood. I think that is the last version of the Haunted Hotel theme, bringing its grand total to 8 separate audio cues. Wow. Just like how all of Shotaro Shima's music in Chapter 3's Mithril Mine felt like different passages of one longer Mithril Mine suite that fit various events within a set location, I get a very similar feeling from these various Haunted Hotel tracks. I'll bet you can make a pretty cohesive medley out of all of them. Nice stuff. Moving on. It's time to explore the rest of Gold Saucer with or without a companion. Returning to Park Central triggers a new arrangement of the Gold Saucer theme, although it'll sound pretty different depending on who you brought with you. Yeah, check it out. It's a mashup of Tifa's theme and the Gold Saucer theme. That's pretty cool. I really like the fast harpsichord layer and plodding bass line, which I find has a lot more personality than Furukawa's main Gold Saucer theme we heard at the top of this episode. Similarly, that main synth line is very loud and a bit irritating, which again feels more like the original Gold Saucer to me. Kinda annoying, but I like that about it. However, like with the preceding Knock on the Door tracks, I prefer the Aerith version. Structurally and instrumentally, it's the same thing as the Tifa one, but I find the blending of Aerith's melodies more musically pleasing and emotionally varied. The arrangers get a lot of mileage out of her main leitmotif. Here, it sounds jauntier than ever. But then, unlike the Sunakawa Hotel version, we do get that sad minor fifth chord, except the energy of the piece is still so bright and vibrant that it leads to some pretty conflicting emotions. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Next up is Yuffie's version, which is the most natural of the three. It shouldn't be too surprising this mashup works so well, since Yuffie's theme is way more upbeat than the previous two. Tifa's theme paints a pretty complex, melancholic picture, while Aerith's theme is heartbreaking, but Yuffie's just a fun, easygoing time, so of course it blends perfectly with Gold Saucer. This arrangement also includes a Wutai-coded shamisen playing the Gold Saucer melody. Another sign that it isn't just the Gold Saucer affecting her theme, like with Tifa and Aerith, but Yuffie's own personality affecting the Gold Saucer, all of which shouldn't be too surprising since you can see her enthusiasm for the place from the moment we arrive. And lastly, if Cloud is all alone, the Gold Saucer theme is blended with On Our Way. This one's a lot of fun too, although like with Tifa's theme, the original piece's emotions aren't as overtly sad as Aerith's or happy as Yuffie's, so the resulting contrast isn't as impressive to me. Although this one does have a unique little breakdown, which is kinda cool. All of these Gold Saucer arrangements were done by Kengo Tokusashi and Mitsuto Suzuki, and I'll bet they had some fun making these. I always love when arrangers have the opportunity to blend themes together. Elsewhere in Park Central, there are a few diegetic pieces of music we can come across. The first one involves a group of dancers in the welcome area letting loose to an instrumental version of Bare Your Soul, the big musical number from the beginning of the chapter. Yeah, they're definitely having a good time. There's also a second group of dancers by the Sky Wheel also dancing to the same track. You can also come across Cait Sith doing various magic tricks throughout the Gold Saucer. This one is awesome. It's a lot longer than most of the diegetic tracks we've heard so far in Rebirth, coming in at almost 2 minutes. If you stick around long enough, there's a cool electric guitar in there too. Definitely a jam. There's also a trio of dancing Chocobo, Tonberry, and Cactuar that have their own diegetic track. While it doesn't directly evoke the Chocobo theme, at a few points it really sounds like it, such as right here. And that's when I realized, hey, I think I've heard this before. That is quite similar. Not identical, but too close to be a coincidence, right? I played a surprising amount of Chocobo GP when it came out, and I don't recall hearing this exact instrumental track, so I can't say for sure that's the origin. Curious to know if any of you have any other leads. The Gold Saucer is divided into various squares, aka saucers, so let's explore each of those. Let's keep our Chocobo train going by hopping over to the Chocobo Square first. This is another one of those 1-to-1 HD arrangements of the FF7 original. Uematsu's original already did a great job of evoking the sounds of a fiddle and banjo with vibrato and bluesy note slides. So it was always very easy to imagine what a more realistic version of this could sound like. Shoya Tsunekawa's new arrangement does it perfectly justice. I was initially going to dock it points for not including the Yahoo! But listening to it again with headphones, I noticed it was there, although the louder fiddle masks it a bit. I don't know, maybe they thought the Yahoo was just too goofy for our very, very serious AAA video game. For now, that's all the Chocobo music we can hear at the Gold Saucer. Emphasis on for now. So let's keep moving. Our next stop takes us to the Wonderment Square. This is another very nice chiptune piece from Mitsuto Suzuki in a similar vein to his 3D Brawler track from earlier, which makes sense since the actual 3D Brawler minigame is located here in the Wonderment Square, along with a couple other minigames. No snowboarding though, gonna have to wait till part 3 for that. Like with the 3D Brawler theme, there are echoes of Bare Your Soul in here too. A lot of the phrasing is very similar. But it's still mostly its own thing. I like the very blissful crescendo at the end. There are quite a few things to see inside the Wonderment Square. The first game we could try is G-Bike, a remix of the motorcycle minigame from Remake. And similar to the minigame, the music is also a remix of its theme from Remake. The track opens on a big repeating guitar riff right out of the original. Like in Remake, it loops its intro until a certain gameplay trigger is hit. In the case of the Rebirth track, it waits until you actually start driving before it jumps to the main body of the piece. From there, the track begins to veer away from the Remake original. We've still got the crazy motorcycle-inspired syntharp though, which is the source of Nobuo Uematsu's composer credit on this one. From there, the track hits you with a variety of hype-up synths and guitar lines, before introducing a new vocal layer. Nozomi Toki gets a writer's credit on this one, so I'm guessing that's her singing. It's honestly such a huge track. I like this one a lot more than I do the remake version. The hard rock spirit of the original is still there, but the stronger electronica vibes suits the aesthetic. Very awesome. Off to one side of the square is a big Queen's Blood booth with its own take on the theme. We've actually heard a stripped-down arrangement of this track all the way back in Chapter 2, just outside Calm in that cabin on a hill. This Gold Saucer version has an extra pianist and a more enthusiastic drummer. There's also a second verse with very likely Tsuyoshi Sekito going ham on the guitar. Alright, That's it for the Wonderment Square, although on your way out you might have heard a familiar diegetic tune. You know, in case you need a bit of Shinra propaganda inside your Shinra propaganda building. Anyway, this is the original remake version of Stamp's theme, and it's the first time we've heard it in Rebirth.
He's a good boy who never stops, keeping eyes in his day for each and everyone.
You get the Japanese version if you're playing with Japanese audio. In all other languages, it's the English version. Next up is the Speed Square, and I hope you brought your dancing shoes. The intro should be familiar enough since it's taken from the first verse of Bare Your Soul. Although it cuts off the beginning of the first word in a sort of awkward way. There's a lot of that in this track. After the first verse, we can hear Nozomi Toki's voice chopped up and remixed throughout the piece, leading to all new catchy melody lines. Yeah, it's fun enough, but wait until it really hits. What the hell? This goes so hard. Who made this? That would be Japanese musician Daisuke Endo, better known under the name of Dede Mouse. I guess Deadmau5 was taken. Not a stranger to video game music, Mouse has been composing and arranging for games for nearly 2 decades, unsurprisingly, mostly for rhythm games like the Beatmania and Idolmaster series, and even Persona 4 Dancing. He's even more prolific as a solo artist and remixer, putting out a near endless stream of new singles onto his Bandcamp page of a consistently high quality. If you like the unique sound of his one Rebirth contribution, you'll probably love some of his solo albums, which also have that same chopped up vocal melody style mixed with kind of new disco beats. I've become a big fan of his. Anyway, this track is subtitled Galactic Saviors, which is the name of the shoot 'em up minigame you can play inside the Speed Square. Let's check that out while we're here. Okay, right off the bat, holy crap, listen to that chunky bass line. Suzuki must have bum rushed the Sega headquarters to get some Sega Genesis sound chips or something, because that thing is crunchy. I love that. We've heard a handful of Suzuki chiptune tracks already, but this sounds way better to me. I don't know much about retro synths, so if you can tell me why this sounds so good, I'm all ears. Anyway, the composition is strong as well. The fact that this track's title is shared with the preceding one's subtitle makes me wonder if there's any melodic overlap between the two, although I don't really hear it. Also, if that wasn't enough, once the mini-boss shows up, we close out the bar, then jump to the next track. Damn, this bass line goes even harder than the last one. That lead synth has a similar chopped up feel to the Dede Mouse track, although I don't think the melodies are that similar. Jesus, this thing is so wild though. I need a prog metal band to cover this thing because this has the potential to be Rebirth's heaviest track. Oh, but that mini-boss is actually just a short section of the already short minigame, so ear blink and you'll miss it because there's a third track right after. Alright, they lose me a bit with this one. You had this gnarly as hell metal track for the Enkidu mini-boss, but then when the big enemy mothership comes, you get this uplifting heroic track? That seems weird. Feels like they could have swapped the two. I mean, I guess their discount Iron Man also shows up at this point to help you take on the boss, so maybe that's why we get a heroic boss theme. In which case, they should have called it Galactic Savior's Space Captain. After you destroy the Gilgamesh mothership, you get a results screen, which I think this track also works better as. Okay, only a few squares left. Next up is the Musclehead Coliseum inside the Battle Square. We're getting a bit of a breather from all the chiptune and electronica tracks, with a big new theme for the Coliseum itself. This is, I believe, Shingo Kataoka's first Rebirth composition, although we've heard a couple fun arrangements from him already, such as the Moogle minigame and Johnny's Seaside Inn. Allergic to doing the same thing twice, Kataoka's Battle Square track is a big, self-important orchestral piece. I don't find it suits the relatively modest and sterile exterior of the Colosseum much, but once you're actually in a battle and you see the various pink gold Dio statues, yeah, the sort of pompous atmosphere of it all meshes well with the track. Not that you can actually hear it in the Colosseum. You can join the festivities via a menu screen that has its own track. It's got some suitably generic horn lines, although if you stay on the menu long enough, it actually starts going places. Not sure I get the sort of Middle Eastern coded melody there, but cool, unexpected. There are a few fights you can take in with your partner, assuming you have one. The first challenge is to the tune of Remake's Lay Down Some Rubber, Let's Ride, which I touched on during the G-Bike minigame. Coming out victorious nets you a new variation of the fanfare. We got the We Will Rock You drums and a heavy guitar playing in the back half. A bit slow, but cool. But if you lose... No, not me. I mean, hypothetically, if one were to lose...
This can't be how it ends.
Some hero you turned out to be.
You would get a surprisingly chill game over screen. I doubt this serene synth track was written specifically for the Musclehead Coliseum, but that's the one we got. Feels way better suited for a VR game over screen. Anyway, the second challenge is against bandits, so naturally it plays Due Recompense. The third round plays the majestic Corel Desert battle theme. But we're not meant to cover that one just yet. Similarly, the fourth battle plays a song we'll hear in its natural habitat next episode, so I'll wait on that one too. Also, the recommended level is 40 and I'm 31, so we'll come back later. Alright, I've saved my favorite square for last. It's finally time to head to the event square. This is the third location where, depending on who your companion is, it'll play different music. Since Tifa's already hanging out with us, let's start with her. This is a very rich new orchestral arrangement of Tifa's theme, though as the track name implies, it's also hiding some pretty short and subtle references to Jessie. This is either our first Rebirth reference to Jessie, or, if you've joined my Hammerhead Conspiracy Club, it's actually the third or fourth reference to her. Either way, this is quite subtle and could have gone over my head if these tracks hadn't been included on the Gold Saucer and Minigame disc, which lists Masashi Hamauzu as the co-composer along with Nobuo Uematsu. All four variations are quite similar to one another, with the Jessie references always easy to miss. Listen to it in Aerith's version. It's also just a very nice arrangement of Aerith's theme. I like the low registry that the violins and violas are hitting in the second half. And the soft choir is a nice addition too. Once again, Yuffie's is a little bit different from the others, because not only do we get Jessie's theme and Yuffie's theme, we also get a bit of Gold Saucer in there. Again, Jessie's theme is quite hidden, maybe most hidden of all these variations. You can barely make it out on a Celesta over the sound of Yuffie's theme on a loud horn. This is some real Where's Waldo type behavior. It's nice though. This arrangement feels like something you'd hear in the opening act of a Kingdom Hearts game. The maidenless version of the Event Square scene once again uses On Our Way. What makes the Jessie leitmotif hard to pick out in the Yuffie and Aerith arrangements is that it functions as a counter melody line for the respective heroines' themes. But in Tifa's and On Our Ways, Jessie's theme is a soft response line, played solo, so it's a lot easier to spot. 4 of these arrangements are quite beautiful, but in particular, one constant they all share is some truly beautiful strings writing. This shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, since its arranger, Akito Imagawa, whom we haven't had the chance to talk about yet, has a background as a violinist. That would explain why those lines really stand out to me. But even more impressive is that Imagawa's specialty is in virtual orchestration, meaning everything you're hearing in these 4 arrangements is done on the computer, with no live instruments. From a technical standpoint, it's pretty dang good. The underlying scoring sounds to me like it would translate beautifully to a live orchestra. As for Imagawa, prior to Rebirth, his only listed video game credit is for a couple Final Fantasy Record Keeper arrangements, although there's a solid enough chance that's not the whole picture. He used to produce pop tunes for the Japanese streaming service Abema, but in recent years he's put his time into royalty-free license music, used in games, commercials, and films. As is often the case with that kind of very transactional work, Imagawa's name likely doesn't show up often in the credits of projects where his music might have been used, so it's hard to know for sure what else he's worked on. To me, his 4 Rebirth arrangements are a resounding success, and I really hope he'll get more work in Part 3. On our way out of the event square, we might notice some folks huddled around a holographic retelling of the legend of Kid G. You can hear Remake's Hell House being played in the background. Like the Hell House itself, Kid G is one of those goofy characters I think most folks figured would have been cut when they announced that Final Fantasy VII was going to get a remake. Just too goofy and obscure, right? Little did we know. Anyhow, our next and final stop is the romantic Skywheel. On our way there, we cut to a scene of Barret arriving at the Musclehead Coliseum, where a shooting has happened. Orchestral chase music accompanies the cutscene. As Barret begins to piece together who he's chasing, we get a repeated, descending melody line that vaguely alludes to some of the themes we'll hear at the end of this chapter. The scene then returns to Cloud as we arrive at the Skywheel, although the mood of the music is suitably tense and mysterious. Once Cait Sith shows up, the action strings come in to convey the escalating intensity. However, because there are 4 slightly different permutations of this scene, one per companion, or if Cloud is solo, the cutscene plays out slightly different from one to the other, meaning the moment where Cait Sith shows up and the intensity ramps up is different for each version of the scene. Instead of arranging 4 different versions of this music, the arranger, likely Yoshitaka Suzuki, decided to work smarter, not harder. The main subdued, mysterious music that plays at the beginning of the cutscene is on one audio track, while the more dramatic Cait Sith escalation music is on a separate audio track. So, the arranger simply needs to crossfade the two once Cait Sith arrives on screen. This is how time-locked field and battle transitions function, but it's the first time I recall seeing it happen across 2 cutscene tracks. Clever. Similarly, once the cutscene wraps up, the arranger triggers a dramatic rising horn stab to seamlessly weave us into the next track. The piece retains the mood of the beginning of the preceding one, although we've sped up the tempo to convey the urgency of the scene. You can hear the staccato strings evoke the cadence of "Let the Battles Begin." It's a functional piece as the party heads to the crime scene. Upon crossing the barricade tape, our next track begins. This is a long cutscene with an accompanying track that has all sorts of mysteries, several of which I am yet to solve. Early on, we hear a faint harp melody. Considering it plays right as Cait Sith appears, it should be safe to assume this is a reference to Cait Sith, although a very subtle one at that. That's the closest comparison I can find, at least. As Dio interrupts Cait Sith, the music briefly stops. When it returns, we've moved into a more somber, mysterious direction. Dio is the focus of much of this scene, and the music reflects that. The first thing we hear is an ascending melody very similar to Shinra's A section, although the resolution is much more gentle. This is a perfect match for Dio, what with him being the director of Shinra's amusement park. Although Dio is a lot warmer and more sympathetic than what we'd expect from a Shinra representative. This, of course, isn't the first time we've heard an arranger play with our expectations of Shinra. Back in Chapter 4, we also saw the resolution of the Shinra A section morphed in various ways to convey different ambiguities and optimism. Shortly after, we get another subtle melody line, this time on strings playing pizzicato. I have no idea what that melody is pulling from, although it seems oddly familiar. Usually when I'm stumped like this, I can look at the visuals and dialogue of the scene to figure out what the arranger is going for. At this exact moment in the scene, Dio mentions Palmer's security being gunned down at the Gold Saucer right as the camera cuts to the victim. Dio, Palmer, and the security officer all fall under the Shinra leitmotif umbrella. The perpetrator is Dyne, although at this point in the story they are trying to put the focus on it possibly being Barrett. And all of this takes place at the Gold Saucer. So unless I've missed something, the melody likely comes from one of those themes, but I can't pick it out. What do you think? As the scene progresses and more evidence points towards Barrett being the perpetrator of the crime, the pizzicato's rhythm changes a bit. As Dio makes it clear he's discussing Barrett, the arranger replaces the pizzicato strings with a xylophone. There's a "let the battles begin"-esque turn of phrase in there, debatably, but mostly I'm still just confused. Maybe the reason I can't put my finger on these is because they're not supposed to be intentional callbacks. This is a long scene of mostly just Dio monologuing, so throwing in a lot of unobtrusive little rhythmic pizzicato and xylophone melodies would be one way of keeping things fresh and preventing the momentum from tanking. The way the arranger adds more and more percussive drum layers feels similarly, utilitarian. Just like Dio's flex position, sometimes you need a bit of audio-visual distraction to get some plot points across. Were this any game but Rebirth, I would have moved on 5 minutes ago, but Rebirth's level of intentionality with its subtle leitmotifs is usually so high, so I'd prefer believe I'm missing something. What do you think? Do you recognize anything in here I missed? Following the cutscene, Cait Sith guides you towards your next destination. What follows is another variation of the music that started when we approached the Sky Wheel. Notice the same dissonant, mysterious horn. There's also some references to let the battles begin in there, letting you know things will soon be hitting the fan. Cait Sith leads them to an elevator that'll take them down to their next destination, Corel Prison. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. All right, that's half of Chapter 8 covered. Here I was worried it was going to take me all year to cover Chapter 8, but this new longer format completely solves that. What did you think of it? Please let me know your thoughts. In the next episode, we'll cover the Corel Prison and the Dyne and Barrett scenes, which will conclude Chapter 8. But before that video comes out, I have something special in the cards. As you know, so much of this Rebirth series so far has been me speculating as to who composed and arranged the various tracks that didn't make it onto the original soundtrack, which is a lot of them. With the imminent release of the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth Plus soundtrack, we're finally going to get some concrete answers. To commemorate this occasion, I'll be releasing a special Plus theme video called How Wrong Was I?, where I'll be grading myself with a unique point system. So much of my reputation is on the line, so I hope you'll tune in to find out just how wrong was I. How wrong I was. Well, the title is How Wrong Was I? Anyway, you know what I'm saying. And while you're staying tuned, please also look forward to part 2 of my big musical retrospective of the Street Fighter series. This one covers Street Fighter 4's massive legacy and should be out pretty soon. Both the Street Fighter 4 video and the Gold Saucer video you just watched were massive undertakings, which is why things seemed pretty quiet on the channel for most of March. It's entirely because of the Patreon that I can take my time with these longer videos, and I can only continue to do so if folks keep joining the ranks. So please have a look at the Patreon. I would love to have you aboard. Alright, talk to you soon. Take care.